Hello, everybody. It's Donna Cravata, and we are here again with another Wisdom Wednesday Real 50 over 50 interview. And today we have Maggie Van Galen, and she is an award-winning children's book author, a wordsmith, an editor, and a storyteller extraordinaire. Storytelling is the link that binds experience and passion. As an author, this reflects in her books and her live events. And as a copy and content writer, Maggie weaves your words into compelling content to tell your story. So, welcome, Maggie.
Thank you, Donna. It's awesome to be here, and Happy New
It's
Year to you.
and to you as well. And so, words are your gig.
They are. They are. I've been writing since I could hold a pen. So, um, yeah, I love words.
How has writing changed your life and your business? Well, it probably you wouldn't have a business if you weren't writing.
Yep, fair point. Fair point. Um, Writing has always been sort of the, let's say, the guardrails to my career, if you will. Um, and those guardrails, the road in between those guardrails has shifted many times. I've worked in the corporate world, I've worked in sales, I've worked in marketing, I went to school for journalism, I've written for local papers. I've written children's books. I now write, I'm a copywriter as well. Um, so, but it always revolves around the words. So I'm not sure that it's changed my life as much as shaped my life.
Mm. So, if you weren't a writer, what do you think you'd be doing?
I have a secret desire to be an interior designer,
Ooh.
but I'm afraid that everybody's house would look like mine.
Say more.
I'm just like I love like pretending I'm on HGTV and designing houses or whatever.
Mhm.
But like if somebody said to me they wanted chintz or wallpaper or I'd be like, no, you don't.
You know?
You want what I like. So I leave that dream career to my own house.
Well, you can have interior design clients. I have one, and it's a lot of fun. So
Yes.
you can write to your heart's content about interior design.
Yeah. Yeah.
And
There you
we
go.
just had to do a whole feature on kitchen sinks. I know everything to know that there is to know about kitchen sinks now.
I love that. I love that. We're getting a new kitchen sink on Monday. I'm very excited.
I've got an article for you.
Oh, there
Um,
you
so let's talk about how like you transitioned from working in all these different industries, the corporate world, sales, marketing, journalism, and landed on, writing children's books and ultimately starting a copywriting business.
Well, so I went again, it's like a path, right? So I went to school hell-bent to be a journalist. I wanted to be a hardcore journalist. That was my goal. Somewhere in the early throes of my freshman year in college, somebody said, "You're never going to make any money as a journalist." And I went, "Oh." And back in those days, we all wanted to sort of climb the corporate ladder and be as
Mhm,
successful as possible. And when you're 18, 19, money is a measure of success. Um,
mhm,
so I switched to an advertising major and with a focus on creative writing. But I went to school at Michigan State, and when I graduated, the automotive industry had imploded, and there were literally no advertising agency jobs to be had in a 3-state radius of where I was. So I went into sales because it was available.
mhm,
Um, and I was, 25-year-old female in an IT industry that was completely male dominated. Um, and you try to make the most of it, right?
Mhm.
So, and back in those days, we didn't have email, we didn't have, texting. The
Yeah.
the World Wide Web hadn't really made
Yeah.
its
It
foray
was
into the
still a
world yet.
novelty.
Yeah, it was. Um, so all of the writing that I did was by hand. I wrote sales letters and sales proposals, and, everything was literally typed out, put into an envelope, and mailed off or faxed off to whatever company. So I do consider that writing, and it certainly has helped shape the way that I write. It's not the most creative type of writing, but it is
Mm.
writing. You have to get it done. Um, I left that. Um, my dad passed away, and my life sort of turned upside down in my head when I was about 25, 26. And I basically took a left and I came out to Massachusetts, which is where I am now. It was supposed to be a short, like 6 month stint. I stayed with a friend of mine, a family friend, um, who had a marketing company. And she's like, just come stay with us. It'll be fine. What could possibly go wrong? So 30 something years later, here I am, still here. Um, and so that sort of shifted my writing into, I was still somewhat in sales, but it shifted it more towards where I kind of wanted to be because it was a magazine. I was creating advertisements for some of our advertisers, um, and eventually, after a few years of doing that, um, I woke up one day and could hardly walk and couldn't move, and the whole stress of, the doctor said, have you had any stress in your life lately? I'm like, well, let's see. My father passed away. I moved cross country, changed careers, went from living on my own to living with like family friends with kids she's like, okay, yeah, this is stress, right? So
Check, check, check.
you need to change your lifestyle. And I was like, okay. So yeah, so eventually, um, through a course of a few steps, I ended up in London with my husband, um, and we had our first child. And we made the decision that he would continue working and I would stay at home, which I was very grateful to be able to do. And the stories that my dad had told me when I was a little girl started to come out to my son, who was a baby. I remembered the characters perfectly. My dad had Kino and Ernest, which were two like memorable characters that I can still picture. And they had all these adventures, all action adventure. I'm sure there was no moral in them for my dad's stories. Um, and then so I started making up my own sort of plot lines and adventures, and of course had to add some morals and life lessons in there. And I would just tell him to my son. And then when he was in preschool, they had the bring your parent into school day, and the nurses and firefighters and everybody would come in and talk about what they did. And he said, Mom, you have to come in because you're a storyteller and that's what you do. And I was like, oh, like, I was, okay.
Isn't it amazing how our children can just pick up on those things that we don't see about ourselves?
Unbelievable, unbelievable. So I went in, I didn't have anything written down. I literally stick figures are the extent of my artistic ability. So I certainly didn't have any like illustrations or pictures. Um, and I told the story to a, group of 3-year-olds, and they were engaged and quiet and asking questions at the end. And the teacher said to me, you have to publish this. And I thought, absolutely not going to happen. I had another one in diapers. There was zero light in my tunnel.
Mhm.
Um, but I went in every year and I would tell the stories, and I continued to do that until my youngest was in kindergarten. And his teacher said the same thing, said, I'm going to introduce you to my best friend, who's a classically trained artist. She's never illustrated before, but maybe you guys can connect. we connected. I decided, if nothing else, leave a legacy for the kids
Mhm.
that my dad wasn't able to leave, which is the story and writing. Um, and the first book came out. Um, it was like, quality wise, it probably wasn't the best, but I was so excited to have, like, you know, to see it and to hold it. It
Yeah.
was so cool. Um, and then subsequently, two more stories in that series came out, and I published them, and I learned a lot about the industry, the process. I learned some lessons the hard way. I learned some lessons, fortunately, through people that had been there before. Um, and it just sort of progressed. And it was a great career, I guess. It wasn't, I wouldn't call being an author a career. It's kind of just like a thing.
Mhm. It's an
It was
extension.
awesome as a mom, right? Because I could go into the schools when the kids were in schools, and it sort of started to take off a little bit. Um, and then I submitted the book to the Mom's Choice Award, which is like an internationally known um, organization that evaluates not only books but all, like, family friendly media. Um, and I won an award, and I was like, holy cow. Like, if I mean, it's great. I love that friends and family buy my books, but when
Mhm.
total strangers tell you that you're on the right track, it's kind of
Yeah.
like, you know. So I still pinch myself a little bit for that. So all three books won that, and that just continued on. And then during that, those times when my kids were in school, I also started writing for the local paper again, and doing some feature articles and covering, like, town meetings, which was painful to cover meetings. This is a journalist's worst nightmare, I think. Um, so
Mm.
it's kind of like, again, those guardrails have always been
Yeah, they
on.
just one thing leads to another.
Yeah, and it just, at one point I was a ski instructor as well, and, like, there's just all these different little journeys and paths that life takes you on.
Yeah,
So,
and they all form who you've become.
yeah, absolutely. Yeah, and with the advent of the pandemic that hit, my any income that I had from going into schools, which was my primary, like, source of income for the books, came to a grinding halt.
Yeah.
And I was whining to a friend over Zoom, probably, uh, about this, and she said, "Maggie, you're a fantastic writer. Why don't you pivot
Mhm.
and offer writing services?" And I was like, "Huh, okay. I'll try, see what
Mhm.
happens." And slowly but surely, it just has kind of evolved into what I do today, which is I write words. Words are my gig.
Mhm. So now do you, like, write articles and web copy and that type of those types of projects?
Yeah, so I like to write, what I call short form content, which
Mhm.
is what you said, website
Mhm.
content, newsletters, blog posts, social media content. Um, I do video scripting, which is kind of fun. Um, I don't I can do things like ebooks and white papers. I just prefer not to, and I feel like I'm old enough to say I don't wanna do that.
Isn't that a nice place to be?
Yeah, and there's certain industries that, like, isn't are not my areas of expertise, and I know people that do those things very well, like the bio field,
Mhm.
biomedical or pharmaceutical
Mhm.
field or stuff. So, and I'm quite happy to, you know,
Yeah.
pass off
Yeah.
to people that can do things better. I just stay in my lane, you
Yeah.
know?
Yeah. I learned how to write working in law firms, and it took me so long to get out of that. And when I started my business, I thought that small law firms would be my clients, and 18 years in and never had a law firm as a client.
That's
'Cause
funny.
I don't wanna go back to that, you know?
Yeah.
But I still can't let go of the bullet points. I do love a bullet point.
Well, as long as you write clearly so that people can actually understand you,
Yeah,
that's good.
yeah,
I actually have quite a few law firms. I seem to, for whatever reason, my sweet spot seems to be um, industries, small businesses that have a lot to say but don't say it very well.
yeah.
So, law firms, doctors, medical professionals,
Accountants.
accountants, coaches, they
Mhm.
have amassed this wealth of knowledge, and they sometimes feel that they have to either share it all with their potential clients, or they speak in their own language,
Yeah.
and the person on the other end doesn't really understand what they're saying. So
No, and as soon as you make somebody feel stupid, they go away.
mhm,
They don't come back.
exactly, exactly. So, but it's been fun. I really enjoy it, and
Mhm.
um, I love all of the different things that I do. It's like a different thing every day,
Yeah,
which makes it interesting and fun and
yeah,
fresh.
yeah. I feel the same way. I love to work with people that do different things, and I have to kinda love what they do to do it. I mean,
Mhm.
in the beginning of my business, I just took whatever I had to take, but now I'm really selective with who I work with because, you know, I really immerse myself, and I have to be passionate about it.
Yeah, my number one criteria for working with a client is you have to be a nice person.
Yeah,
I don't really care what you do or how much you make, or, you know, that
yeah.
comes secondary to who you are as a person.
I agree 100%. When I first started my business, everyone was like, "You have to niche down, you have to niche down." And I was like, "I don't even know where to begin." Like, I just came from 25 years in law firms, you know?
Yep.
And I just decided that my niche was gonna be no assholes.
There you go. I like that.
Yeah,
Yep.
and I've had very few.
Yep. Yeah, that's a good motto. That could be your tagline, Donna. Bravado Media, no assholes. That's awesome.
In life and business.
Yes, exactly, exactly. Oh, that's great. I love that.
What could you spin that into?
Oh, so many, so many. We did one of the networking groups that I belong to, we did a little course on, creating sort of like your elevator pitch,
Mhm.
and after, I don't know, it's, mind you, it's a bunch of, like, sort of our age women sitting around, and, the the hashtag that we came up with, because the we were talking about hashtag AF, everything was as, I don't know if I could say the word F.
Say whatever you want to say.
Fire truck.
I yeah.
Pull out my kid stories. Um, but, like, it was just it was the same thing, like, everybody was just, like, in hysterics because
Mhm.
we've all been there, right? And we're all like, I don't know, it was funny. I digress. Go on.
Well, I mean, that was the whole, premise of all of this, 50 over 50 interviews thing is that, I just know all these women that are doing amazing things and have changed their lives and have realized that they wanna do what they love, not what they think they need to do or somebody thought they needed to do. And, it's just been such an incredible experience having all these conversations and learning more about all these people and sharing these stories because most of us are not, getting the visibility that we need. And it goes to, the people that Forbes determines are worthy.
Yep.
And this is the antithesis of that. And I mean, just hearing all the stories is so much similarity in, what you just explained, your whole trajectory of how you went from this to this to this to this to this to this. And then you reach a point where it's like, oh, I could actually decide what I want to do.
Yeah.
And it's just such a gift.
I remember I used to be really envious of people that had a skill or a craft or a career that they could literally take anywhere that they wanted to go.
Yeah.
One of our best friends is a yogi, and he's amazing and has a studios and and he could do it anywhere,
Yeah.
right? And I was like, "Oh," and then one day I was like, the proverbial light bulb went off, and I was like, "Wait a minute, I have that. I can take a pen and paper anywhere
Mhm.
I go."
Yeah.
I was like, "Oh yeah."
Yeah.
So, but it does take you a while and experience and, surrounding yourself with no assholes to get to that
Yeah.
stage.
But I think there's also a level of tangibility. Like a yogi, there's something tangible there. This is what he does. You can see him do it. You can feel the experience. You can go to his studio. You can call up. You can make an appointment. He's on Google Maps, you know?
Yeah,
But when you do something that's not tangible, I mean, you have words. Those words are just floating around until you put them to paper. What I do is similar too. It's like I help people become visible. Like, what does that even mean?
yep. Yeah,
But
no, that's a
the
good
thing
point.
yeah, and, like, people want the shopping bag, like, they wanna walk away with something. So, like, finding something that kind of grounds what you do makes it, real to you and makes it feel like a value, something that you can talk about, and then somebody can attach to and say, "Oh," like, it can capture their attention, and they could feel like, "Oh, I need that," without it being and I think that that's what writing does, is it clarifies these intangible, um, you know, business paths that, have all sprung out of the internet in one way or another. I was just watching, to stay out of the news cycle, I decided I was gonna binge 7 seasons of Mad Men,
Okay.
and, it was such a masterclass in the things that don't change.
Yes.
I mean, misogyny aside,
Yeah.
and like and the love of cigarette smoking and selling cigarettes, but, there was just so many lessons in it, it was amazing. It was amazing, and, like the building of the relationships and the maintaining of those relationships and being involved in somebody's business to where you know it almost better than they do,
Yep.
because you could see it from a different perspective.
Yes.
It's incredibly valuable, and it's really hard to do for yourself even if you have these skills.
Yeah. Yeah. No, absolutely. Absolutely. Yeah, it is funny. I every now and again I'll watch a show from the way back years,
Mhm.
and you're right, like, things don't change. I mean, they change, right? Like, Little House on the Prairie doesn't have internet or cell
Yeah,
phones or whatever,
yeah, and
but
you
the
don't have
the
a horse.
general premise of the life lesson is
Yeah,
still relevant today.
yeah, yeah, and that's so important because I think it gets lost in the technology and the need to, jump on the next bright, shiny bandwagon. Um, when we stop to kind of reflect back, it's, it's the thing that kind of, keeps us connected to each other.
Yes. Yes. Connection is key.
Yeah.
Connect that and that in itself is sort of the magic of writing, because it
Mhm.
can make that connection between, you know, the reader and the storyline, the customer and the, client. It's all about figuring out that connection.
Yeah, and when you can take somebody's stories, somebody's business, somebody's experience, and you can craft it in a way that reflects back to them things that they either don't see or forgot about, or I mean, like, look, you're smiling, you're all glowy. It's such a special moment when that happens because they see a version of themselves that they couldn't have found by themselves.
Right, right. Yeah, and I mean, generally speaking, the one thing that I find, that people do too much is too much,
Yeah, yeah.
right? So, I I I I do a writing class, And I've taken it to from, fourth and fifth graders up through business people. And my general theme, no matter what audience I'm talking to, is to keep it simple and keep it short. It's just people don't, especially on social media and the way the world is today, people just don't have the time. They don't spend the time to read all your eloquent wording and writing, so you have to, and every type of writing is very similar. Well, not every writing, but business writing is very similar to journalistic writing. There's formula. Get your most important point up front and then whittle it down as you write. It's the same. Think about picking up the newspaper. If you first read the headline, if it's interesting, you carry on. Like, that's how you should write. And it has to be short and simple and to the point.
There are two things that made me a really good writer: Twitter and PR.
What was the other one?
PR.
Oh, yes. Yes. Yeah.
You get down to the who, what, where, why, and how, and then you stop.
Yeah. Yeah. If they want more, they'll reach out, which is what you want, right?
Yeah.
Yeah.
Yeah. But that's really hard to do for yourself because you have all of this knowledge, all of this experience. You're steeped in it and immersed in it. And, you don't know how to separate, like, what's the tip of the iceberg, because that's all they really need.
Yes.
But you don't know how to, like, do that without giving them the whole iceberg.
Yeah. I just did a website it was like a website refresh for a law firm, speaking of law firms. And it was a 14-page website. And I said, he was awesome. He was like, I'm not sure what, this isn't my area of expertise. And I said, well, the key of the website is to provide enough information that whoever's reading it wants to call you to come back for more. It's not to give them your Juris Doctorus in a website, right?
Yeah, and lawyers don't know how to do this. They,
Right.
If it's not 200 pages, like, don't even get me out of bed.
Yes. And thankfully, he was like, oh, okay, that's really receptive. And we whittled it down to 5 pages. And I was amazed at, like, how much easier it was for people to use and find. And, I said, it's just, it's a hook. It's a landing place. It's your front door. You want them to open it and come in.
Yeah.
And I don't do any of the, like, making it look pretty or the
Yeah.
back end technical stuff. That is totally not my area of expertise. But yeah, I mean, it's interesting. And that whole philosophy can be anybody, any industry, anything, even if you're writing an essay or, an article or blog post, whatever you're writing.
Yeah. Yeah. I mean, what I tend to do when I write articles is I'll go get long tail keyword phrases to use as the headings. And then I'll just backfill. Like, those will be the questions. And then I'll backfill. My paragraphs will be the answers to those questions. And then I have a conclusion and then I stop. And then, like, I walk away so I'm not, like, compelled to make it another 2,000 words because I easily can.
Yep. Yes.
And you have to kind of build these little tricks in to stop yourself.
Yes, absolutely. And that, I mean, the whole desire to have a perfect piece also plays into that too,
Yeah.
right? Like, I could edit my own work forever and still not have it to the best of my ability. So, like, when I work with authors, they're always like, well, you're an editor. I'm like, yes. And if I'm just editing your work, then that's fine. But if I'm working with you as, like, an author consultant, like helping you get from point A to point B, then we're going to hire out an author that is not involved. doesn't care. Like, they literally don't care about you or your
Mhm,
book or the success. They're just looking at the words and making sure that they make sense, that they're
mhm.
spelled correctly, that it's, um, you know, and they're like, "I don't understand why that's important." I'm like, "It's so important."
It's so important.
Like, editing is just so important.
Yeah, and there's different levels of editing too,
There
and
is.
and so many authors that are new authors don't understand
Yeah.
that you need a developmental editor and you need a copy editor, and, um, and you can't skimp there,
No.
and you can't skip on your book cover or your design, you just can't.
Yep.
There are enough shitty books out there, you don't need to add one more to the pile.
Yes. Yes, and with the advent of AI, it's becoming even
Yeah,
worse.
yeah, yeah, but with that, the good ones will stand out. So if you put in the effort and you make the investment, I mean, it's not cheap to write a book, to
No,
do it the right way.
no. No,
It's
and even if you get picked up by one of the big, 5 publishers, it's still
what
a
does that even
lot
mean
of
anymore?
work.
Yeah.
It's still a lot of work on the it's even more work now on the arm of the
I
author
was
because
just
they
gonna
don't do
say,
as much as they used to do.
yeah, well, it's even more work and it's dragged out over, like, 2 years, if you're self-publishing or working with an indie publisher, you can get a book published in 6 months, you know?
Yeah, although I always tell people once your manuscript is done, I always plan on a year,
Mhm,
even though people say 6 months, 3 months. I've heard
mhm.
somebody say 3 months. I was like, "Wow." Like, that's fast because as an editor, if you hand me a 100,000 word manuscript to edit, that's gonna take me a while.
Yeah, yeah, yeah,
You know what I
and
mean?
then there's a rewrite after that.
Yeah, which I don't know how that falls in a 3-month time frame,
Yeah,
right? I
it does.
mean.
Well, it depends on the book. Like, I worked with somebody who she had a book that was just, like, 35 techniques that she does. So,
Mhm.
like, it was like a technique per page, and we just put it into alphabetical order, and it was really an easy lift to publish that book. So that we
Yes.
did that really quickly. That was done in, like, 3 months. But,
Yep.
to do, like, a book like a book like this,
Yeah.
it it takes time.
Yeah.
I'm working with an author now, and, she kept thinking, she was gonna be ready in November, and she was gonna be ready in December, and she was gonna be ready in January, and, we talked in, like, January or even earlier than that, we talked about, like, what should we make the launch date, and, she was like, "I'm gonna be ready in February." I said, "No, you're not." I said, "Let's push it out to April, the end of April," and she's still proofreading.
Yeah.
I mean, she's almost done. I think she needs, like, a week or 2, but, the other thing to factor in too is, um, like, how much of what you're writing is, emotional. Like, what are you sharing from your story that you have to heal and go through? And, I mean,
Yeah.
you have to factor that in, and people don't. They don't because the writing, um, it's a journey,
Mhm.
often a healing journey.
Yes. Yeah, absolutely. And I think I mean, whether it's a children's book that requires illustrations
Mhm,
or, a nonfiction business book that has graphs and charts in it,
mhm,
y as the author, you tend to pour your heart and soul into it, right? And you want it to be the best version of yourself when it finally comes out. So, it's
yeah,
so important, I did, like, a brain dump of my 20 plus years of in the children's book publishing world, like, what do I think
mhm,
somebody would need to do if they
mhm,
were to get published? And every time I meet with somebody, I just give that to them because it's, like, just whether you decide to work with me or not, like, these are things that you need to think about. And getting a team in place
mhm,
is one of the things on my list, and that includes an editor, it includes a graphic designer, it includes, a publicist, it includes, like, all of these things. Sometimes those are combined into multiple people, but
mhm.
there are areas of expertise that need to be included. And, just because I can dabble in Canva does not make me a graphic designer.
No, no.
right?
And also to market early.
Yes, the marketing piece is huge, which
Yeah,
all of that leads to the next point, which is what is your budget?
yeah.
Because and what are your expectations? Like if your budget is 500 bucks, it's not gonna happen.
Don't write a book.
Don't write a book.
Get a blog.
If your expectations are to be the next Tom Clancy, first of
Mhm.
all, I'm probably not the right person that you need to be speaking with, but maybe you need to reevaluate your expectations. Like
Yeah,
what is it that you wanna be?
yeah.
What do you wanna see?
Mhm.
So,
And
those are
what role does that book play in your life, in your business, and, like, what are your expectations of this book? Because people also feel like they wrote a book and, like, the floodgates are gonna open and, yeah, there's not a whole lot of ROI
yeah, I mean,
unless you build a business around that book.
and even then,
Yeah,
having done that,
yeah,
that's not easy,
no,
right? If you do I mean, do a Google search for the general theme of your book, that's who you're competing with.
yeah,
And some of those people, I mean, if you write a business book, you compete against Dale Carnegie, Stephen Covey, like,
yeah,
all these people from
people that
long
are
time.
dead.
Yeah, but their books and
The
their
books are still
techniques are
going.
still out there. Not to mention, like, the new and fresh
Yeah,
ways of doing things, right? So, it's yeah, I mean, it's tough. It's tough, and I've said no to a few people, like, I've read previewed their manuscripts, and I won't work on them because I think it's a waste of their time and money,
yeah.
to be honest.
But I'm right there with you. I actually stopped working with authors for a couple of years because I was just getting this influx of people coming to me that were totally unrealistic. And I got tired of saying no. I was like,
Yep,
I don't want to keep saying no to people. So I took a break from it because, um, I had one woman come to me Christmas week that she wasn't even done with her manuscript yet. And she wanted to launch on January 14th with like 40 affiliate partners that she didn't have, and I was like, "Okay, I'm done." That was when I said, "I'm done."
yep. Good luck. I'm done. Yeah. I had it was a friend of mine actually, so it was kind of I call my pro bono work that I was doing. She was like, "I have this idea. I really think it would make for a cute children's book. Can you help me a little bit?" I was like, "Yeah, of course." So I did, and this was probably like March of 2023 she came to me. And manuscript was done, didn't have an illustrator, didn't have anybody else in line. And she said, "I'd like to get it out for Christmas." And I said, "Well, back up from that then. If you want to get things ready for Christmas sales, you need to be done, dusted, ready to ship by like no later than September 1st. Retailers would probably argue, and marketers as well. You want to go even sooner than that, right? To get the marketing and all that stuff."
Mhm,
I said, "So, and you want at least like 12 to 15 illustrations done like by hand, not digitally. Even if it's digital, it's still gonna take a while.
mhm,
That's like probably 3 months worth of work." Now we're back in like today.
mhm.
So, if you want a Christmas launch, I would suggest you shoot for like Christmas of 2025,
Next year.
right? And
Yeah.
she was like, "Oh, I see how that works," or 2024. And she did. She pushed it
Yeah,
out.
and you just don't, I mean, people just don't know what they don't know, but then there's people like that, like, get it
Yeah,
and are willing to change their timeline, and then there's those that aren't, they just
yeah.
want what they want, and yeah, I don't play that game anymore.
No, no. But it is funny, like, you're right, people don't know what they don't know, and the good ones, when they learn what they didn't know and are willing to accept it and modify, they're
Yeah.
way more successful, and that's
Yeah.
not just authors or
Yeah,
that's
totally,
kind of
totally.
life's lesson, right?
Well, there's this whole misconception that, because it's online, it's easy.
Mhm.
And it
and
could
cheap.
be easy, but usually easy and cheap is bad. Like there was, you can't have, successful, good, easy, cheap, fast, you can't have them all. You can have 3, right?
Yeah,
So you pick the 3 that you want.
yeah, yeah.
So if
No,
you want
very true.
successful and good, it's very rarely fast or cheap.
Yes, there's those all those old adages, there's no such thing as a free lunch
No,
or,
and,
you know,
we're
you
going
get
back
what
to
you
Mad
pay
Men
for.
now.
Exactly.
All right, we have actually gone like 10 minutes over because
Oh
I'm
my
just
goodness.
loving this conversation. But I like to end these interviews with a wisdom bomb, just something small and actionable that people could take with them. And I think we just gave 10 minutes of publishing wisdom bombs. We keep going.
Well, my wisdom bomb is actually how I sign my books and how I live my life, which is always follow your dreams.
Mhm.
Those dreams don't always come to fruition right away or immediately or in a straight line. But as long as they're there in the forefront and you work towards them every day, they will come. And I'm, I promise that. So
It's true, and it's right behind you too.
yes, it's kind of my mantra.
Well, that's excellent advice. Thank you. Thank you for spending time today and sharing your wisdom and your experiences and your stories. And everybody, please connect with Maggie. And her website is right there, MaggieVanGalen.com. She's also on the Real 50 Over 50. This replay is here forever and ever and ever. So if you're watching on the replay, tag us with questions, with comments, ideas. Let's keep the conversation going. And we will be back again next Wednesday with more
Yay.
50 Over 50 women. Thank you, and have a great Wednesday, everyone.
Thank you so much, Donna. That was great.
Thank you.